1973, Super Bowl VIII. Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. Fran Tarkenton stood on the sideline. The Minnesota Vikings were losing to the Miami Dolphins. Again, 24-7. His team was getting crushed, and Fran knew this was his second Super Bowl loss. The man who'd revolutionized the quarterback position, who'd invented the scrambling style that every modern QB would copy, was losing the biggest game again. The press would destroy him. His legacy would be questioned, and the question would haunt him forever. Was Fran Tarkenton a genius, or just the greatest loser in NFL history? Don't forget to follow and turn on notifications, because this is the story of how one man changed football forever, lost 3 Super Bowls, destroyed his reputation with ego and scandal, and left a legacy no one can agree on. 1961. The NFL was different then. Quarterbacks stood in the pocket. They didn't move. They threw the ball from a protected position, and if the pocket collapsed, they went down. That was the rule. That was football. Pocket passers like Johnny Unitas and Bart Starr defined the position. Stand tall. Deliver the ball. Don't run. Ever. And then Fran Tarkenton arrived. Tarkenton was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings in the 3rd round. Nobody expected much. He was from the University of Georgia. Good college player, but small for a quarterback. 6 feet tall. 190 pounds. Scouts said he was too small to survive NFL hits, too weak to stand in the pocket against massive defensive linemen. But Tarkenton had something nobody else had: mobility, speed, and instinct. In his very first NFL game against the Chicago Bears, something historic happened. The pocket collapsed. Defensive linemen rushed toward Tarkenton, and instead of going down, he ran. He scrambled to his right, avoided one defender, then another, and threw a touchdown pass while running sideways. The crowd went silent, because nobody had seen that before. Quarterbacks didn't do that, but Tarkenton just did. That play changed everything. Throughout the 1960s, Tarkenton continued scrambling, running, dodging defenders, making plays that shouldn't have been possible. Coaches hated it. You're going to get hurt, they said. Stay in the pocket. But Tarkenton ignored them. Because his way worked. He threw for more yards than anyone expected. He led the Vikings to winning seasons. And most importantly, he was fun to watch. Fans loved him. The scrambling quarterback became a phenomenon. Football announcers started calling him Fran the Scrambler, and a new style of quarterback play was born. Steve Young would later use it. Michael Vick would perfect it. Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson would become superstars with it, but Fran Tarkenton invented it. By 1970, Tarkenton had left the Vikings for the New York Giants. He spent 5 years in New York, proving he was one of the best quarterbacks in football. But in 1972, something happened. Minnesota begged him to come back. Because the Vikings had built a championship team. The defense was perfect. They were called the Purple People Eaters. Alan Page, Carl Eller, Jim Marshall, the best defensive line in the NFL. The running game was strong. They had stars like Chuck Foreman. But they didn't have a quarterback, and they wanted Tarkenton back. Fran agreed, because he knew this was his Super Bowl chance. And in 1973, that chance came. Super Bowl VIII, January 13th, 1974, Minnesota Vikings versus Miami Dolphins. For Fran Tarkenton, this moment should have been the peak of his career. The Vikings had a great season. They won 12 games, the defense let nobody score, and Tarkenton was a mature leader. He was 33 years old, 13 years of NFL experience. He was ready, but the Miami Dolphins were better, much better. Coach Don Shula had prepared a perfect game plan. Larry Csonka, the massive running back, crushed the Vikings defense. He rushed for 145 yards. Tarkenton couldn't throw. He was under pressure. Every play, the Miami defense was on him. Final score, Miami 24, Vikings 7. A loss. A crushing loss. But Tarkenton made a promise to himself, we'll come back and we'll win. Super Bowl IX, January 12th, 1975. 1 year later, the Minnesota Vikings were back in the Super Bowl. This time, the opponent was the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steel Curtain Defense, Mean Joe Green, Jack Lambert, Mel Blount. Maybe the greatest defense in NFL history. And again, Tarkenton had no chance. The Steelers' defense destroyed him. Constant pressure, constant sacks. Tarkenton only completed 11 passes. He finished with 112 yards, 3 interceptions. It was a disaster performance. Final score, Pittsburgh 16, Vikings 6, second Super Bowl loss. In the locker room, there was silence. Teammates wouldn't look at each other. And Tarkenton sat there, his head in his hands. Why? Why can't I win? But the worst was yet to come. Because in the 1976 season, something changed. Tarkenton became MVP. It was his best season, 3,075 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, only 9 interceptions. The Vikings won 11 games, and they went to the Super Bowl for the 3rd time. Super Bowl the 11, January 9th, 1977. Minnesota Vikings versus Oakland Raiders, Rose Bowl Stadium, 100,000 people, and this time it would be different. Tarkenton promised himself, "This is our year, 3rd time's the charm." But it wasn't. The Raiders were a great team. Quarterback Ken Stabler, running back Clarence Davis, and that famous Raiders defense. The Vikings had no chance. The first half was a disaster. Raiders 19, Vikings 0. Tarkenton was sacked. He threw interceptions. Nothing worked. In the second half, the Vikings rallied a bit, but it was too late. Final score, Oakland 32, Vikings 14, 3rd Super Bowl loss. In the locker room, Fran Tarkenton cried. He was almost 40 years old. He'd been to 3 Super Bowls and lost all 3, and he knew he'd never get another chance. Reporters came. They asked questions. "Fran, why can't you win?" Tarkenton couldn't answer. He just shook his head. And in that moment, something changed. The media started labeling him a loser, the greatest losing quarterback. 3 Super Bowls, 3 losses, and that label never left. But the Super Bowl losses were just the beginning, because Tarkenton had another problem: ego. His teammates had noticed it. For years, Fran talked constantly, complained constantly. If a play went wrong, he'd blame others. The receiver ran the wrong route. The offensive line didn't protect. The coach called the wrong play. He never said, "I made a mistake." In 19 Pete 75, Vikings coach Bud Grant spoke in an interview. "Fran is a great player, but he's not a team player." This statement dropped like a bomb, because Grant was the team's coach, and he was criticizing his own quarterback. But Grant was right. Tarkenton wanted to control everything. He'd change plays. He wouldn't listen to Grant's plans. "I see what's happening on the field. The coach doesn't see it," he'd say. This arrogance bothered his teammates. After the 1976 NFC Championship game, the biggest explosion happened. The Vikings beat the Los Angeles Rams. They were going to the Super Bowl. It should have been a celebration. But there was tension in the locker room. Fran spoke to reporters. "I'm here to win, not others. I provide leadership. I throw passes. I make scores." His teammates were shocked, because football was a team game. But Fran was saying "I," constantly "I." The next day, newspapers ran headlines. "Tarkenton, I won, not the team." That's not exactly what he said, but that's how the media perceived it. And the crack in the team grew. Defensive players were angry. "We give up 0 points every game." But Fran takes the credit. Running back Chuck Foreman spoke. Fran cares about his statistics, not winning. After the Super Bowl the 11 loss, this ego problem got worse. At the press conference, Fran said, "The defense didn't play well today. They lost it for us. Defensive players went crazy because Tarkenton had thrown 3 interceptions." He lost the game. But he was blaming the defense. Alan Page, the all-pro defensive player, spoke that day. "Fran is not a leader. He's a blamer. It's always someone else's fault, never his responsibility." The locker room divided. Some players supported Tarkenton, some abandoned him. and the Vikings never made it back to the Super Bowl. 1978. Fran Tarkenton retired. He was 38 years old, 18-year career, 47,003 passing yards, an NFL record at the time. 342 touchdown passes, 9 Pro Bowl selections, 1 MVP award. The statistics were great, but there was no championship. There were 3 Super Bowl losses, and there was the loser label. Tarkenton couldn't accept this. "I made history," he'd say. "I invented the modern quarterback, but nobody sees that. They only talk about the losses." And after football, Tarkenton wanted to prove something, that he could succeed in business. After retirement, Tarkenton got into several ventures. First, he did TV commentary. He covered NFL games for CBS and ABC. He was good, knowledgeable, but it wasn't enough. He wanted more. He wanted money. He wanted prestige. And in 1982, he jumped into business. He started a financial consulting company called Tarkenton Financial. He provided investment consulting to small businesses. And for a while, things were good. Clients came, he made money. But then, something happened. In 1985, Tarkenton partnered with a religious organization called Church of God. They were going to start a big investment fund. Church members would invest money, Tarkenton would manage the investments, and everyone would profit. At least that was the plan. Tarkenton said in prospectuses, "This is a safe investment. With the discipline I learned in the NFL, I'll grow your money." Thousands of people invested because they trusted Fran Tarkenton. He was an NFL legend. He wouldn't lie, but he did. 1987, the federal government launched an investigation. It was revealed that Tarkenton's investment fund had lost millions of dollars. Some investors lost all their savings, and Tarkenton explained almost nothing. Court documents showed Tarkenton had transferred some of the money to his own projects. He'd lied to investors. He'd hidden risks. This was fraud. 1989, lawsuits began. Investors sued Tarkenton. The federal government brought charges. The media went crazy. Newspapers ran headlines. NFL hero accused of fraud. TV debate shows discussed it. And Tarkenton's reputation was destroyed. He wasn't just the guy who lost 3 Super Bowls anymore. He was also a fraud. Tarkenton denied the accusations. "I'm a victim," he said. "My partners deceived me. I lost too." But nobody believed him. Because Tarkenton's signature was on every document. He was the chairman. He made the decisions. The responsibility was his. 1999, 10 years later. The lawsuits were still going, and Tarkenton got tired. He was exhausted from fighting. He agreed to pay compensation, $153,000, without admitting guilt, just to close the case. His lawyers explained, "Mr. Tarkenton is innocent, but the lawsuit costs are too high, so we're settling." But everyone knew the truth. Tarkenton had lost. Again, not just in football, in life too. The press called him football genius, financial fool. One newspaper wrote, Fran Tarkenton could escape defenses on the field, but he couldn't escape real life. And Tarkenton went quiet. For years, he didn't speak. He stayed away from the media because every time he spoke, people said, fraud. Today, Fran Tarkenton is 85 years old. He's still alive, but nobody talks to him. He doesn't go to NFL events. He doesn't appear at Hall of Fame ceremonies. He lives a quiet life. And his legacy is still controversial. Some say Fran Tarkenton invented modern football. He created the scrambling quarterback concept. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, they all carry Tarkenton's legacy. He was a genius. And this is true. Tarkenton really changed the game. In the 1960s, nobody thought quarterbacks could run. Tarkenton showed them. And today, the best quarterbacks in the NFL are all mobile. They use Tarkenton's style. But others say Fran Tarkenton lost 3 Super Bowls. He failed in the most important moments. His ego alienated his teammates. And after retirement, he defrauded people. He's a loser. And this is also true, because in football, winning is everything. Statistics don't matter, championships matter, and Tarkenton never won. In 1986, Tarkenton was elected to the Hall of Fame. He gave a speech. "I loved football. I gave everything, but I couldn't win a championship. This will haunt me forever." In that moment, Fran cried. Because he knew no matter how much success he had, people would always remember him as the guy who lost 3 Super Bowls. And today, young NFL fans don't even know Fran Tarkenton. "Who's that?" they say. "Did he play before Mahomes?" And this is Tarkenton's greatest tragedy, because he changed football, but he was forgotten. Mahomes, Jackson, Allen, they're famous now. They're champions. But nobody remembers Tarkenton. So who was Fran Tarkenton? Genius or loser? Both. He invented the scrambling quarterback style and shaped modern football, but he lost 3 Super Bowls and finished his career without winning. He failed in business and destroyed his reputation, and now he's faded into history as a forgotten legend. When the name Fran Tarkenton is heard, 2 things come to mind: the father of the mobile quarterback and the man who never won. And both are true. Because Fran Tarkenton was everything: genius, loser, revolutionary, ego, success, failure. He was football history's most complex character, and his legacy will be debated forever.